I want to start today with a story about pizza,
Okay.
but not just any pizza. We are talking about arguably the most expensive dinner ever purchased in the history of mankind.
Oh, I have a feeling I know exactly which dinner you're referring to.
And honestly, every time I think about this story, my stomach just turns a little bit.
We're going back to May 2010, right? Laszlo Hanyecz.
You got it. May 22nd, 2010. A programmer, Laszlo Hanyecz, he posts on this, this really niche internet forum.
Yeah.
He's hungry, he's at his computer, and he basically says, I'll pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas.
Just wanted some food delivered.
That's it. He just wanted someone to order him 2 large pizzas, maybe pepperoni, and have him show up at his door. At the time, those 10,000 coins were worth, what, about $41?
Something like that, yeah. Based on the electricity cost to mine them. So less than half a cent per coin.
And for anyone listening who has, checked the markets in the last, decade, hearing the number 10,000 Bitcoins being traded for 2 Papa John's pizzas it's just nauseating. It's physically painful to think about.
It is mind-boggling. I mean, depending on the day's price, those 2 pizzas cost hundreds of millions of dollars in today's money.
You could buy a fleet of private jets with the pizza money.
A small island, maybe. But look, we're not here just to cry over missed opportunities or talk about, magical internet money.
No, because that story, it's a great piece of trivia, but it often distracts from what was actually happening underneath.
That was happening.
That transaction wasn't just about lunch. It was the very first time this weird digital code, which up until then was just an experiment for geeks,
Right.
was exchanged for a real-world tangible good. It was the moment value was assigned to something that didn't physically exist.
Exactly. And that brings us to the deep dive for today. We are unpacking the book Cryptoassets, The Innovative Investor's Guide to Bitcoin and Beyond by Chris Burniske and Jack Tatar.
A fantastic read.
Now, I know you might be thinking, this book came out in 2017. In crypto years, that's basically ancient history.
It really is a lifetime ago. So why are we talking about it?
Because it's considered a seminal text.
Mm-hmm.
It moves way past the daily headlines, the price charts, the noise.
Yeah.
And that's really our mission for this discussion.
Right.
We want to move beyond the bubbles, the crashes, the scams, all the get-rich-quick stuff. Burniske and Tatar frame this not just as an investment guide, but as a history of a technological revolution.
A revolution in what specifically? Because, we hear revolution thrown around a lot in tech.
A revolution in trust.
Yeah.
That's the key word. It challenges how we, as humans, coordinate and collaborate.
Okay.
So we're going to look at the origins of this tech, the taxonomy of these assets, because, spoiler alert, it is not all just currency.
It's not just Bitcoin.
Not at all. We'll look at the volatility that scares everyone away, and then finally, how the big suits on Wall Street eventually, and very reluctantly, came to the table.
So let's rewind the clock. Because to understand why this stuff exists, you can't start with the solution. You have to start with the problem.
I have to start with 2008.
The autumn of 2008. I remember this so vividly. I think anyone who was an adult then does. It wasn't just that the stock market was down. It was this visceral feeling in the air.
It was systemic terror. That's the only way to describe it. We aren't talking about a normal recession. We're talking about the plumbing of the global economy just seizing up.
Lehman Brothers, a 158-year-old institution.
Gone overnight. You had these images on the news of employees walking out of their offices in New York and London carrying cardboard boxes with their stuff.
Yeah.
It was surreal.
And the credit freeze? I remember hearing that huge companies, I think GE was one of them, were having trouble making payroll.
Because the overnight lending markets, the very bedrock of corporate finance, just froze solid.
It felt like the banks, these institutions we were always told were the foundation of society, were suddenly made of sand.
Exactly. Trust in the banking system wasn't just damaged, it completely evaporated. You had millions of people losing their homes, their life savings.
And governments were just scrambling, printing money, they called it quantitative easing, to bail out these institutions that were too big to fail.
And the narrative was, we have to save the banks to save you. But for a lot of people on the street, it looked like we are robbing the future to pay for the mistakes of the present.
Right. And in the middle of all this chaos, literally while the global economy is smoldering, something happens on the internet.
Halloween, October 31st, 2008. A white paper just appears on a cryptography mailing list.
From the mysterious, anonymous Satoshi Nakamoto.
Titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And the timing, it couldn't have been more deliberate. Satoshi sends an email the next day and says, I've been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer with no trusted third party.
That phrase, no trusted third party, is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Why was that the core pitch?
Well, look at the context. The trusted third parties, the banks, the clearinghouses, the regulators had just failed the entire world in the most spectacular way possible.
So Satoshi was proposing a system where you don't need a bank to say, yes, this money is real and you sent it.
The code would do it. The math would verify it.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. It wasn't just a dry technical proposal. Satoshi left a message, a literal Easter egg embedded in the very first block of the Bitcoin blockchain.
The Genesis block, January 3rd, 2009.
Yes, and it's one of my favorite details in all of financial history. It's like a secret note in a bottle.
The text read, The Times, 03 Jan 2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks.
A headline from the British newspaper, The Times, from that exact day.
So on a technical level, it serves as a timestamp. It proves the code wasn't pre-mined or created before that date, but symbolically?
Symbolically, it was a political manifesto.
A smoking gun, isn't it?
It is. It was a direct, pointed response to institutional failure. Satoshi was pointing a finger at the old system, the bailouts, the money printing, the centralization, and quietly offering an alternative.
Hal Finney, who was the very first person to receive a Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi, he put it perfectly. He said he was just fascinated by the idea of creating a form of money that's independent of any government or corporation.
It's rebellious. It's almost punk rock, in a way.
It absolutely was. We don't need your banks. We have our own network.
And then, just as the project is gaining a tiny bit of traction, just a few people using it, the creator pulls a vanishing act.
April 2011. Satoshi sends a final message saying the project is in good hands with the community, and then gone. Vanished.
Which is the ultimate mystery. But the book argues this wasn't just some eccentric move. It was actually a strategic necessity, right?
It was crucial. Think about it. If Satoshi had stuck around, he or she or they would have become a central point of authority. A CEO, basically.
People would look to Satoshi to make decisions. Hey, Satoshi, should we increase the block size?
What do you think about this new regulation?
Exactly.
And if a government wanted to shut it down, they just go arrest Satoshi?
A single point of failure.
Precisely. You can't subpoena a ghost. By leaving, Satoshi ensured that Bitcoin was truly decentralized. There is no head of the snake to cut off. It belongs to the network. It was the ultimate act of letting go to let it grow.
So we had this incredible origin story born directly out of the financial crisis. But for a lot of people, and I'll admit I relate to this, the tech part is where their eyes start to glaze over.
Sure, you hear blockchain, hashing, nodes, and it's easy to just tune out.
The book tells this great story of a guy named James who worked in banking tech for like 15 years.
Right, James. He's the perfect proxy for the skeptical expert.
James hears about blockchain in 2015, and he just completely dismisses it. He says something like, it's just a database. We have databases. Oracle makes great databases. Why do we need this slow, clunky thing?
He's scoffed at it.
Totally. But then, 6 months later, he actually sits down and reads up on how it really works, and the book says he literally couldn't sleep that night.
Because he realized it wasn't just a database. It solved the trust problem. The Byzantine generals problem, if you want the computer science term.
What is that exactly?
Well, normally, if I want to send you digital money, we need a bank in the middle to verify that I have the money and that I sent it to you and not to someone else at the same time.
The double spend problem.
Yes. The bank keeps the one true ledger. If the bank deletes a line in their spreadsheet, your money is gone.
So James realized that blockchain replaces the bank with math. Is that fair to say?
With math and a clever system design, it replaces the bank with what the book calls 3 pillars: distributed ledgers, cryptographic security, and consensus mechanisms.
Okay, let's unpack those 3 pillars because that still sounds like a mouthful. Can you give me an analogy?
Okay, let's try. Think of the distributed ledger like a giant stone tablet in the middle of a village. Everyone can see it. When I pay you for something, we go and carve that transaction into the stone for everyone to see.
Okay, so it's public.
Right. In the banking world, that stone tablet is locked away in a private vault where only the banker can see it and write on it. In the Bitcoin world, everyone in the village has a perfect copy of that stone tablet in their own house.
So if I try to sneak into my own house and change my personal copy to say I have $1 million.
Everyone else just looks at their copies and says, no, you don't. And they ignore you. The network rejects your lie. That's the distributed ledger.
Got it. Pillar 1, what's pillar 2?
Cryptographic security? These are like, think of them like magical, tamper-evident seals on every transaction.
Okay.
Each new transaction is mathematically linked to the one before it, creating a chain. If you try to go back and change an old transaction, the math breaks. The seal is broken. It would be like trying to change the ingredients of a cake after you've already baked it.
The whole thing falls apart.
Instantly, the network just rejects it.
And pillar 3, consensus mechanisms. And this sounds like how the network agrees on the truth. This is where mining comes in, right? The famous proof of work.
Correct. And this is probably the most misunderstood part of the whole system. People think miners are just solving, like, complex Sudoku puzzles for fun. Right? They aren't. They are spending real-world energy. They're buying massive amounts of computer hardware and paying huge electricity bills to compete for the right to add the next page to that ledger.
But why? I mean, why waste all that energy? That's the huge criticism we always hear, isn't it? That it's boiling the oceans.
It is a criticism, but the book argues that the energy is the security. Think of it this way. In a traditional bank, security comes from thick concrete walls, steel vaults, and armed guards.
Physical security.
In Bitcoin, security comes from cost, because honest miners are spending millions of dollars on electricity if a hacker wanted to attack the network and rewrite history.
They would have to spend more money on electricity than all the honest miners combined.
Exactly. It makes cheating mathematically and, more importantly, financially irrational. It's just too expensive to attack.
That was Satoshi's genius then. He turned greed into a security feature.
That's a perfect way to put it. You are incentivized to play by the rules because it's profitable. If you try to cheat, you just lose a fortune in electricity bills and get absolutely nothing.
And this whole mechanism, this whole system, leads to one of the most important concepts the book highlights: scarcity.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the why it all matters moment for a lot of people. Fiat currency, so dollars, euros, yen, can be printed in unlimited quantities by central banks.
We saw that in 2008, and we saw it again in a massive way in 2020.
Right. And when they print more money, the money already in your pocket in your savings account, it just buys less stuff. It's inflation.
The silent tax.
Exactly. Bitcoin is different. It is scarcity by code. There will never, ever be more than 21 million Bitcoin, period. It's hard-coded.
It's hard money.
That's the term. But the book makes a really important point that this technology isn't just about money. If you can have a decentralized, immutable ledger, you can use that for all sorts of things.
Like what?
Supply chains, voting records, digital identity, property titles. It's about restructuring trust in society without needing that middleman for everything.
Which brings us to the broader ecosystem, because for a long time, people just said Bitcoin when they meant everything in this space. But Burniske and Tatar introduce a taxonomy, a way of classifying these assets. They say it's not a monolith.
Right. That's like saying the internet is just email. It's not. There's streaming video, there's social media, there's e-commerce. They're all different applications.
So the authors break crypto down into 3 main buckets: cryptocurrencies, crypto commodities, and crypto tokens.
That's the framework.
Okay, let's run through these. Cryptocurrencies are the obvious ones: Bitcoin, Litecoin. Their main purpose is to be money.
Digital money, a medium of exchange, a store of value. You could call it digital gold.
Then we get crypto commodities. The book uses the key example of Ethereum, and they call it digital oil. I like that analogy.
It's a great analogy. If Bitcoin is digital gold, something you hold as a store of value, then Ethereum is digital oil. It's a resource that you have to burn to make things happen on its network.
To make what happen?
To power a sort of decentralized world computer. Ethereum allows for something called smart contracts.
Smart contract is a terrible name, by the way. It sounds like a legal document, and it's not.
It's a truly awful name. It confuses everyone. The book suggests thinking of it more like a vending machine.
A vending machine? How so?
Well, think about a real vending machine. You don't need a clerk. You don't need to sign a contract. You put $2 in, you press the button B4, and the machine mechanically releases the Snickers bar. The code executes the deal automatically.
If money is received, then release product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ethereum lets developers build these digital vending machines for basically anything.
Yeah.
Loans, insurance, trading, gaming items, you name it.
So you're not just sending value from A to B, you're running applications that nobody can shut down or censor.
That's the idea. And that leads to the third bucket, crypto tokens. These are like the goods inside the vending machine.
So not the money, not the fuel, but the actual thing you're buying?
Right. They can represent governance rights, so like voting shares in a decentralized organization, or they could be digital collectibles. or access keys to a particular service.
This is where we get into the buzzwords that confuse everyone, DeFi and NFTs. The book breaks these down really well. Let's start with DeFi.
Decentralized finance. The pitch is basically, imagine a bank, but without the actual bank.
Without the skyscrapers, the tellers, the 3-hour lunch breaks.
The bonuses, all of it. With DeFi, you can lend your money out and earn interest, or you can borrow money or trade assets, all through code. There's no credit check, no branch manager judging you.
No business hours.
It's 24/7/365. It's democratizing access to financial tools in theory.
If you have an internet connection, you have access to a global financial system.
That's the promise, a Swiss bank in your pocket.
And then NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I feel like this is where a lot of people just get stuck on expensive JPEGs of monkeys.
It became a punchline, for sure, and a lot of it was speculation. But the underlying concept is just digital property rights.
Okay, break that down. Fungible versus non-fungible.
Fungible just means interchangeable. A dollar is fungible. If I borrow a dollar from you and give you a different dollar back, you don't care. They're the same. Non-fungible means unique.
Like the Mona Lisa. Or the deeds to your house. There's only one.
Precisely. But on the internet, historically, everything is copy-paste. I can right-click and save any image.
But with an NFT, you can't copy the ownership.
Exactly. You can copy the image, but you can't copy the provenance, the record of ownership on the blockchain. For the first time, creators, artists, musicians, game developers can prove they issued the original.
And they can program in royalties, right?
That's the real kicker. An artist can program a smart contract so that if their digital art piece is resold 10 times, they automatically get a 5% cut of every single one of those sales. That's never been possible for artists before.
There is one more piece of this ecosystem that the book talks about, kind of a bridge between the old and new worlds, stablecoins.
Right. This is a crucial piece of the puzzle. Stablecoins are crypto assets that are pegged to a real-world currency, usually the US dollar.
So one token equals $1.
In theory, yes. They give you the speed and borderless nature of crypto, but without the wild price swings. For people in countries with hyperinflation, think Argentina or Turkey or Lebanon, these are an absolute lifeline.
They can hold digital dollars to protect their savings from their own government's failing currency.
It's a huge deal for millions of people.
Speaking of wild price swings, we absolutely have to talk about the volatility, because this is the part that gives people heart attacks. The book tells the story of an investor named Thomas.
Poor Thomas. I think we've all been Thomas at some point in our investing lives.
Thomas buys in early 2013 at $200 per coin. He feels like an absolute genius when it rockets up to $1,000. He's calling his friends. He's probably looking at car brochures online.
He's on top of the world.
And then the crash. The price plummets all the way down to $100.
Oh, wow.
He panic sells everything. He takes a 50% loss and swears off crypto forever.
It's such a classic story. And it's tragic, really, because if he had just held on, he would have done incredibly well. But you can't blame him.
No.
The volatility in this space is unlike anything in traditional finance. In the stock market, a 20% drop is called a crash, and it's front-page news. In crypto, that's just a boring Tuesday afternoon.
And it's usually driven by specific catastrophic events. The book details the Mt. Gox disaster in 2014. For anyone listening who doesn't know, could you paint the picture of what Mt. Gox was?
It sounds like a made-up name. It actually stood for Magic, the Gathering Online Exchange originally, believe it or not.
Seriously?
Yes. But by 2014, Mt. Gox was the Tokyo-based exchange that was handling 70% of all Bitcoin transactions in the entire world.
70%?
70. Imagine if the New York Stock Exchange also handled 70% of all US dollar bank transfers. It's a massive, terrifying single point of failure.
And it failed.
Spectacularly. In early 2014, they halted withdrawals. Can you imagine that feeling? You log in to check your balance and the site just doesn't load, or it says under maintenance.
Oh, that's a cold sweat moment.
Then they announced that 850,000 Bitcoins were just gone, hacked, lost. That was worth about $450 million at the time. Today, it would be tens of billions.
The price of Bitcoin crashed by more than half. Everyone, and I mean everyone, wrote Bitcoin obituaries. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, they all said it was a failed experiment, a Ponzi scheme that had finally collapsed.
But this is the most important point the book makes about this whole era. The institution failed, but the protocol survived.
That distinction is absolutely vital.
It's the whole ballgame. Mt. Gox was a centralized company. It was run by humans who made mistakes, who had terrible security practices. But the Bitcoin network itself,
It kept going.
it kept producing blocks every 10 minutes like clockwork. It didn't stop. It didn't ask for a bailout from the government. The technology worked perfectly. The business built on top of it failed miserably.
And we saw this pattern repeat over and over again. The 2017 boom where everything went to the moon, followed by the 2018 crypto winter where most assets dropped 80 or 90%.
Then the COVID crash in March 2020. That one was really interesting.
Oh, so.
Bitcoin dropped 50% in a single day, right alongside the stock market. It showed that in a true global panic, people sell everything. Gold, stocks, bonds, crypto. Cash was king for about 24 hours, but then Bitcoin recovered incredibly fast, way faster than traditional markets.
And then again in May 2021, Elon Musk tweets about energy usage, China announces a ban on mining, and boom, another massive crash.
It feels like a roller coaster that's designed to make you throw up.
Yeah.
But the authors make a fascinating argument that this volatility is actually a feature, not a bug.
How on earth can losing half your money be a feature? That sounds like a cope.
I know. But think of it as the brutal, messy process of price discovery. This is a brand new asset class. Nobody really knows what it's worth yet. Is it worth zero? Is it worth $1 million a coin? The volatility is the market fighting it out, trying to figure that out in real time.
And the crashes.
The crashes are stress tests. They act like forest fires.
Forest fires, explain that.
A forest fire seems destructive, but it's a natural and healthy part of an ecosystem's life cycle. Yeah. It burns out all the dead wood, the weak undergrowth. These crypto crashes do the same thing. They flesh out the scams, the weak projects with no real utility, the overleveraged gamblers who were just there to get rich quick.
So the projects that survive the winter are the ones that are actually building something real, the redwoods.
Exactly. So if you can stomach the ride, the ecosystem as a whole gets stronger and more mature with each cycle. And eventually, that maturity attracted the one group everyone thought would hate crypto forever. The suits. Wall Street.
The irony here is just, it's so rich. It's like watching the cool kids in high school suddenly start wearing the clothes the nerds wore 5 years earlier, but pretending they invented the trend.
It really is. I mean, you have to look at Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Chase.
Mm-hmm.
In 2017, he's on public record calling Bitcoin a fraud.
I remember that. He said it was worse than tulip bulbs. He said he'd fire any trader on his desk caught trading it for being stupid.
Fast forward just 2 years to 2019, and JP Morgan is launching its own digital coin, the JPM coin. And now, they offer multiple crypto funds to their high net worth clients.
You can't make this stuff up, the great flip-flop.
It's incredible. But it wasn't just them flip-flopping. Some of the smartest people on Wall Street were there quietly all along. The book highlights Abigail Johnson, the CEO of Fidelity. She was a true pioneer among the institutional crowd. Fidelity is this massive, conservative, Boston-based asset manager. They manage your grandma's pension fund. But way back in 2014, remember, it was right during the Mt. Gox disaster, she had her innovation lab mining Bitcoin.
Well, everyone else was literally writing its obituary.
While others were laughing at it at cocktail parties, Fidelity was quietly building institutional-grade custody services. She saw that eventually big money would want to buy this, and they would need a trusted, regulated place to store it. She positioned Fidelity years ahead of the curve.
And then came the macro investors. Paul Tudor Jones.
May 2020. This was a huge turning point. Paul Tudor Jones is an absolute legend in the hedge fund world. He wrote this letter to his investors comparing Bitcoin to gold in the 1970s.
What was his reasoning?
He basically said, look, the central banks are printing an unprecedented amount of money to fight the COVID recession. I need a hedge against the great monetary inflation. I'm buying Bitcoin.
That gave permission to everyone else, didn't it?
It absolutely did. It solved the career risk problem. Before that letter, if a fund manager bought Bitcoin and lost money, they'd get fired for being reckless and irresponsible. After Paul Tudor Jones did it, they could go to their investment committee and say, hey, I'm just following the smart money.
And speaking of, well, bold moves with money, we have to talk about MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. This was a kind of boring business intelligence company that just decided to convert its entire corporate treasury into Bitcoin.
Starting with $250 million, it was a complete philosophical shift. Saylor looked at his cash reserves sitting in the bank earning 0% interest while inflation was ticking up.
He said his cash was a melting ice cube.
He called it trash. So he moved his company's primary reserve asset from cash to Bitcoin. It was a massive, audacious bet, but it signaled to the entire corporate world that you could actually put this stuff on your balance sheet.
And finally, the boss level of institutional adoption, BlackRock, Larry Fink.
The biggest asset manager on the planet. $10 trillion under management. Larry Fink went on this journey from calling it an index of money laundering in 2017 to admitting crypto is here to stay by 2021.
And now they run one of the biggest Bitcoin ETFs in the world. When BlackRock enters the chat, the conversation fundamentally changes. The stigma is gone.
It's gone.
So what does all this institutional adoption mean? Does it mean the crazy volatility just goes away?
Well, it certainly legitimizes the asset class. It brings in professional risk management, regulatory oversight, and theoretically, yes, deeper pockets and more liquidity should dampen that volatility over time. It becomes less of a Wild West and more of a legitimate financial sector, but don't expect it to trade like a boring utility stock. It's still new technology.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the tech, the insane crashes, and the arrival of the suits. Now, for the listener who's thinking, so what do I do with all this information? Do I bet the farm? We need to talk about strategy.
And we need to be very clear, this is absolutely not financial advice. Please don't sue us.
Please don't. We're just analyzing the strategies that are outlined in the book.
Right. And the book's framework leans heavily on something called modern portfolio theory, the one free lunch in investing.
Which is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Correct. The holy grail of building a good portfolio is finding assets that have positive expected returns, but don't all move in the same direction at the same time.
So when stocks zig, something else might zag.
Exactly. And the historical data, for the most part, shows that crypto assets have had very low correlation to stocks and bonds.
Which means adding a small amount to a traditional portfolio can actually, boost returns while lowering overall risk? That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but the math holds up. If, this is a huge if, you size your position correctly.
Sizing is the key. You don't put 50% of your net worth in. The book cites a Yale study and other advisors that suggest a 1% to maybe 6% allocation for an aggressive portfolio.
That's what I call the sleep at night number. If you put 1% of your portfolio into crypto and it goes to zero, absolute, total, catastrophic zero, you lost 1%.
It's a bad day, but you're not ruined. You don't lose your house.
Exactly. You skip the fancy coffee for a month.
Yeah.
But the upside is what they call asymmetric. Meaning your downside is capped at 100% loss, but your upside is potentially 10x, 20x, or more. So that small 1% allocation, if it performs well, can have a significant positive impact on your overall portfolio performance. It's like a lottery ticket with much better odds.
And the book stresses the discipline that comes with rebalancing. I love this part because it forces you to be rational when your brain is screaming at you to be emotional.
It forces you to actually buy low and sell high, which is the hardest things for any human investor to do. Our brains are wired to do the exact opposite.
To follow the herd. When it's crashing, your brain screams, get out, run for the hills. When it's booming, you get FOMO and you scream, I have to buy more.
So how does the rebalancing rule work?
Now, let's say you decide on a 2% target allocation to crypto. If Bitcoin triples in price, suddenly it's not 2% of your portfolio anymore, it's 6%.
And you feel like a genius. You want to let it ride to the moon.
But the rule says, no. You sell that extra 4% and you buy more of your boring stocks or bonds to get back to your target. You are mechanically taking profits.
And what about when it crashes? Say it drops by 50%.
Then your 2% allocation becomes 1%. Everyone on the news is saying crypto is dead for the 500th time. You feel sick to your stomach. But the rule says, sell some of your bonds and buy more Bitcoin to get back to your 2% target.
You're mechanically buying the dip when there's blood in the streets.
It's an emotional straitjacket. It takes the decision-making away from your panicking lizard brain.
And one quick but very important note on taxes. Because nothing ruins a bull market like a surprise bill from the IRS.
Absolutely. The book warns about this. In the U.S. and many other countries, every single trade is a taxable event.
So if you buy Bitcoin, and then you trade that Bitcoin directly for some Ethereum,
you have to calculate the capital gain or loss on the Bitcoin at that moment and report it, even if you never converted back to dollars.
It's a nightmare to track. The book warns. Don't get caught out by the tax man. Keep very good records, or use one of the software services that does it for you. The tax authorities are not known for their sense of humor on these things.
Let's zoom out to the global stage for our last big topic. Because this technology is borderless code, doesn't care about national borders, but laws absolutely do. Let's talk about the rules of the road.
It's a complete patchwork map right now. You have different countries taking wildly different approaches to this disruptive technology.
Let's start with Japan. We mentioned Mt. Gox happened there. You'd think after that massive national embarrassment, they would have just banned it instantly.
You would think so. But they took what the book calls the Phoenix approach. After the ashes of Mt. Gox, instead of banning it, they decided to regulate it properly.
What did they do?
They set up clear rules for exchanges, required them to hold customer funds in segregated accounts, implemented strict security audits and consumer protections. They were the first major country to recognize it as a legal property.
And as a result,
Japan became a massive global leader in the space. They realized you can't really ban the future, so you might as well try to make it safe for your citizens.
Then you have a place like Switzerland.
Crypto Valley and Zug. The Swiss have always been pragmatic about finance and privacy. Their regulator, FINMA, came out early and created a clear classification system. They basically said, here are the rules of the sandbox. Come here, follow these rules, and we will let you innovate.
So they attract a lot of talent.
A huge amount. The Ethereum Foundation, for example, is based there.
Okay, now contrast that with the United States.
The U.S. is, let's just call it a mess. It's an alphabet soup of regulators.
Yeah.
You have the SEC, the CFTC, the IRS, FinCEN,
Yeah.
and they all fight over who gets to regulate what.
The SEC says most things are securities. The CFTC says Bitcoin is a commodity.
It creates a tremendous amount of legal uncertainty for businesses trying to build in the space. For years, the approach has been regulation by enforcement, not by clear rules.
And then you have the heavy hand. China. This is fascinating because they did a complete 180-degree turn.
They brought down the ban hammer. China used to be the absolute center of the Bitcoin mining world. Something like 65% of the network's hash rate was powered by Chinese coal and hydroelectric dams.
But then they cracked down. Hard. Why? Was it really just about the energy consumption?
Energy was the public excuse. The book argues the real reason is capital control. China has very strict controls on how much money can leave the country.
Right.
But Bitcoin punches a giant hole in that wall. You can memorize 12 words, your seed phrase, walk across any border on Earth, and you've just transported your entire net worth in your head. You don't need a suitcase full of cash.
That is absolutely terrifying for an authoritarian regime that relies on total control.
It worked too well. So by 2021, they had essentially banned all trading and mining to plug that hole. And then they launched their own central bank digital currency, the digital yuan.
Which is the complete opposite. Fully centralized, fully trackable, fully controllable.
Exactly. But you see the EU trying to find a middle ground with their MiCA legislation.
Markets and crypto assets.
It's a comprehensive framework. They're trying to provide a single set of clear rules across all member states. The big takeaway here is that regulation is slowly but surely moving from the Wild West phase to the developed markets phase. It's becoming part of the system.
So we've taken quite a journey here. From a 10,000 Bitcoin pizza purchase to a global financial asset held by BlackRock and regulated by the European Union.
It's a remarkable story of resilience when you think about it. This industry was born from the ashes of the 2008 financial crisis. It survived the Mt. Gox collapse, which should have killed it in its crib. It survived the 2018 crypto winter. It survived being banned by one of the world's largest superpowers.
It's like the honey badger of finance. It just doesn't care.
It really doesn't. And that leads to the book's final conclusion. Crypto probably isn't going to replace the US dollar entirely. We're not all going to be buying our coffee with Bitcoin tomorrow in some Mad Max world.
But the volatility just makes it bad for buying coffee.
It's terrible for that. So what's the future? The book argues for coexistence. We'll likely have a future with 3 parallel systems. You'll have the traditional banking system for stability and loans. You'll have central bank digital currencies for government payments and surveillance. And you'll have decentralized assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum running alongside them.
For people who want sovereignty.
For people who want sovereignty or digital property rights or simply an insurance policy against the failure of the other 2 systems.
One system for control, one for freedom.
Precisely. They serve different needs for different people.
I want to leave our listeners with this final thought from the source material. It's something that really stuck with me. We spend so much time talking about getting rich with crypto. That's the hook that gets everyone's attention. But the book argues the true power is much, much deeper.
Yes. It asks a really fundamental question. What is money? And the answer is that money is just a ledger of trust. It's a shared story, a record of who owns what. For all of human history, we have needed a king or a government or a bank to keep that ledger and verify that trust for us. Now, for the first time, we have a technology that allows the ledger to belong to everyone and no one at the same time. So the question is, what happens to society when we no longer need powerful institutions to verify trust? What happens when we can trust the code more than we trust the corporation? That's the question that will define the next few decades of finance.
A huge thank you to everyone for taking this deep dive with us. It's a lot to process, but hopefully you can now see a little more of the signal through all the noise.
It was a pleasure. Keep asking questions.
We'll see you next time.